Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Mayorka, otherwise known as Jonny Tsunami on the ones and twos. And usually I'm behind the camera, behind the scenes, making everyone look beautiful. But I can still do that in front of the camera. And honestly, for this next guest, there's no need to even do that. She's got it. Uh, and so, it works out. Now, I only get in front of the camera when I have special guests or special stories. And today we have a very special guest. She's an activist here in Los Angeles. She's a recent undergraduate from California State University in Los Angeles. Congratulations. Go Golden Eagles. The lovely and fiery Maya Taylor.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. I must say it's a pleasure to be a guest on your show. I cannot wait to converse further with you and talk more about activism. It's my life. I love it. I love it. Unfortunately, we're doing this under racially, tense circumstances in our society, but nonetheless, we're going to have a great time, a great conversation.
Yes, we are. Welcome. Thanks for coming on. Now, Maya, I had met you recently at the Robert Fuller protest last Saturday, on the 13th. I was there with Tina Desiree Berg, covering the event for True Rebel Network, which is my network, and then helping Tina cover it for Status Quo, and she's helping Jordan Sheridan out. And it was near the end of the protest, and we just ran into you, and we just hit it off. You were totally speaking mine and Tina's language. And so much of what you said was just absolutely fire. But I know there were some things that I was curious to discuss with you about. And I named this segment Perspective because it's important for us to see the different perspectives that everybody brings, especially those who are courageous enough to go out into the trenches of the protests. There's rubber bullets flying. There's smoke grenades popping off. People who go to city council meetings or people who are protesting in front of LA Board of Supervisors house, people that are dedicated, and I have a lot of respect for it. So yeah, we met at the Robert Fuller protest on site in Palmdale, California. And so I'm curious, I want to know why you were at the Palmdale protest, what brought you there, and, how did you feel about everything? And I asked this question because I'd like to hear your why of why you went there.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for asking. I've actually been traveling all across Southern California, going to different protests in different locations. I've kind of been following my moral compass and going where I think I'm needed the most. And at that time, I thought Palmdale needed the most people to advocate for justice. So that's why you saw me there. Honestly, throughout all the protests I've been to and all the different locations, each one of them brings such a significantly different element to the table. I mentioned to a friend of mine that throughout all the different protests, I feel like I've seen every single stage of grief. Each protest embodies a different stage. And that protest in Palmdale was the depression stage at its peak. That's the first time I've ever cried at a protest. I felt
Yeah.
emotionally connected to the area. It was a lot, a lot of emotional turmoil. His family was there, which was heart-wrenching. It was a lot to take in, and also, the police force, still trying to intimidate peaceful protesters by, just numerically standing up with their heavy weaponry and, trying to intimidate us, making sure that we don't take up the street or anything like that, which is understandable, I get, but what is not understandable to me, in my opinion, is that they make these suggestions that we stay out of the street, and they claim it's for our safety, but they block off the streets just so that they can intimidate us. And in my opinion, if they're there to protect and serve the area, they're really there to watch out for everybody's best interests. And they can still block off the street, but do it so that the peaceful protesters can have that area, so that we can mourn in the best way that we see fit, and just really grieve and to make our message and exercise our First Amendment rights.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the same. That was the first time I cried because it was really sad. Especially when everyone gathered around the tree, and there was a lot of emotions going on there, and all the flowers, and there was a lot of people crying. You could feel the emotion. You could feel it. You could feel it.
and the sage too. I think it was the sage that did it for me, and it kind of just opened up like, a bunch of, I'll call them chakras, for the sake of conversation, but I'm not an expert on them, so I hope I didn't misspeak. But it definitely opened up, a lot of my emotions and allowed me to feel what I had repressed or, in prior protests, because they were more mission oriented, whereas this one was respectful, and it was, the trauma is very fresh, and we just want to pay our respects to the family and show that we are there in solidarity and in support. Which it was, the crowd was, beautiful. It's always lovely to see so many people come together, even under the worst circumstances possible, because the connection definitely helps us all heal. I think that, yeah, I'm just really happy we all had each other to lean on for and support.
Yes, I agree. Now we have several cases now of men who have committed suicide, according to the police, but no one is buying that, right? No one is buying that. You told me you didn't buy that.
Not at all. Like, not at all. It's actually very offensive, in my opinion, because we've seen crimes like this, hate crimes, in the past before. And, when they are resurfacing, especially like I mentioned, we're in a very, racially tense time in our society. So at the peak of these times, to have a man hung from a tree, which is a lynching, and the officers, a lot of people are calling it a cover up, because the officers took so long to release any information about his death. And then
Yes.
once the information of his death was finally released, people were like, that doesn't sound like a suicide to me. That sounds like a lynching. I'm not sure if the city of Palmdale has had any suicides like in that manner before, but if so, then I'd be really puzzled if they have. I really do think that his death was the result of this social climate that we're in.
Right. And so, and I kind of want to paraphrase what a protester who was giving a speech in front of Palmdale City Hall said. They were like, "No black man is going to hang himself in the same manner that black men have been lynched for in the past history." It's terrible. It's ridiculous. How do you expect us to buy that? And then since me and Tina have been back, I went today in the morning, and then yesterday also with Tina. And we've been talking to the shop owners, the business owners around town, around that area. And one shop in particular is a photography shop, and they have a camera that points right at the street. It doesn't point at the park, but it points right at the street. And you can see, if cars have passed by at that time at 3 a.m., right, or maybe from 12 to 3, there can be some investigation done there. And the shop owner tells me that they haven't, the sheriffs haven't even come to them until today. The detectives are going today. So it's just taking a long, why is it taking so long? Like, if they really cared, it would be the next day that it happened, right?
Yeah, no, it's because they don't care. Like I was saying, like to some protesters at Palmdale, the day that I saw you there and met you there. Honestly, like I've been around federal buildings many of times in many different cities and a couple of different states, and I have never come across a federal building or any plethora of federal buildings that do not have any type of cameras around them, around the perimeters. I just find that very, very hard to believe. And also, there are more ways to solve a crime. There are street cameras around that they have access to. Like, they can definitely, I'm sure, create a perimeter and check cameras within that area. Like you were saying, check the stores and the shops. It makes no sense, in my opinion, that reporters are doing a better job of investigating what happened to Robert Fuller than the Palmdale Police Department. But they can send 50, upward towards 50 officers out to a peaceful protest to intimidate civilians. It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. Like, I am baffled. I am deeply, deeply offended. And like you referenced, that lovely woman who made that speech outside, and speaking to the crowd, I have never known any Black person to commit suicide in that manner. And also, the Black community has been dealing with trauma for hundreds of years. Our parents raise us differently so that we can deal with the trauma that this world has to offer us. Black people are severely depressed in a lot of cases, but they do not resort to suicide. We are not raised that way. Black people are
No.
raised, unfortunately, to suppress their emotions and to continue existing. We're not, yeah, no, I've never known any person to degrade themselves by committing suicide in that manner, or, like to not vocalize or to come to their family for connection. We are raised to rely on our families and our peers and our friends for comfort and connection when we're in times of need. And a lot of people even resort to spirituality or religion. We have different outlets to deal with our trauma and our depression. I've never seen or heard of such a degrading suicide. No, any type of death that I've heard that was executed in that manner was a lynching.
I believe so as well. So this really begs the question, why do you think this is happening? The supposed suicides that are really lynchings. And first in the micro sense, with the lynchings, and then we'll discuss macro. But why do you think this is happening?
I definitely think it's in retaliation to all of the protests that are going on. I think that solidarity amongst these different communities is intimidating a lot of radical white supremacists. I think that if you've been bouncing around to protests like I have, then you see demographically speaking at each protest there's every single race and ethnicity present there. There are signs in different languages. There are people speaking different languages. It is like there are people from all backgrounds coming together under one umbrella, which is trying to promote social equity and fight to end racial inequality. And it is humbling and it is a beautiful experience. People around the world are speaking out, and I think that makes white supremacists extremely uncomfortable. I think it intimidates them, and I think that they are trying to intimidate us right back by using their white privilege to commit vicious crimes such as this, and relying on the fact that they know that the police are not going to investigate it. It's bureaucratic. It is, that's how white supremacy works.
Yeah, I agree. I believe these white supremacists are scared. I also believe they're trying to send a message. It's I don't know. It's these people, who are really dark places, without recovery. Do you think we can ever reform racists and white supremacists like this that are committing these acts?
I actually do, because I believe that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. I think that, like I mentioned before, we have under-resourced and under-educated populations. No matter what, how you racially identify, that's across the nation and that's a global thing. There are always going to be under-resourced and underresourced and undereducated pockets in society, because that is the way the currency is set up in the world banking system. But yes, I think that a lot of times when you see people lashing out, whether it be projecting hate towards a different demographic or retaliating to all the hate that's projected onto you, all that has to do with the fact that people are not, they are not getting the education that they need, because racism is taught, but just like, anything, like that speaks volumes in itself. Knowledge is very, very, very powerful. So I believe that with the proper, education, a lot of people's minds and opinions, will evolve on their own and continue to grow towards wanting a more equitable future for us all, because that's really what they want. People are misdirecting and projecting their frustrations onto the wrong people. It is not us versus each other. If they are mad that they are under-resourced in their communities, then they're mad at the wrong people. It's the real problem here. They're taking their anger out on the wrong people, and that is on both ends of the spectrum, because like it is the 99% versus the 1%. Those are the people that are truly depriving us of all of our resources. That's why we have these undereducated and under-resourced pockets. And I mean, like, not even just impoverished communities. I'm speaking on a general basis. The wealth gap between even the upper class and the elitist class is still larger than most of us can even mentally fathom. It is downright disrespectful. So, that is the real issue here. We're looking to the wrong people to take our anger out on, and we're also looking to the wrong people for answers, in my opinion.
Who do you think we should be looking for answers from?
I think we need to start pointing the finger at the rich elitist class, because they're the ones who have the true power to change all of our situations. There's no reason in the world why we should have all of the resources for the entire global population to be doing mighty well, and yet there's a humanitarian crisis in Yemen right now. Children are starving. We have humanitarian crises going like all across the globe. Like, there's no reason that there should even be, the first world and second and third world countries. No, we have enough resources to make sure that everybody has what they need to thrive, not just survive, but to thrive. And there's no reason in the world, in my opinion, that we should not be distributing those on an equitable basis, giving everybody what they need to get to where they want to go. Because as a human race, we will just go so much further. We will advance further when you give resources to people who you counted out for the small, for insignificant matters, like where they're from or what they look like.
Right, exactly. And, no one really ever says it, but the United States is an empire. We've been imperialistic in so many countries, so we've been causing harm, and they've been investing half of the military budget on or half of our federal budget on the military. So it's like, why not invest those trillions into a peace department, into something that's like with more resources and things like that,
Right. Because we're bullies. The United States is a bully. They like being powerful, and they believe that the only way to be powerful is to make others unpowerful and to make them feel powerless and to make them feel stuck in that reality. But that is not true. A lot of the systems that bind us are social constructs. They are not real. Money is not real. We as humans do not come into this universe with it. It is a concept that we made to help our society structure better. We can create a new and better one. It's not working for us.
I agree. Yes. So let's speak in the macro sense. Why do you think these protests are happening? I feel like people are waking up. What do you think factors into this historic moment in history that we're living through? And you kind of alluded to it already. It's kind of like economics, the capitalism. So your thoughts on that?
Yes. Like you said, I believe there is a plethora of reasons why we're experiencing this right now. I think the most horrific thing being, everybody attributes these protests to George Floyd, and all respect to him, of course, because his life should not have been lost at all. But George Floyd was just what set everybody off. This has been stirring up for a very, very long time. For anybody who's Black your entire life, this has been, stirring up, and all you needed was your peers to say, let's make a change. We're all in this together, for people to stand in protest and to stand in protest for weeks straight. Like, these protests are still going. Tomorrow's Juneteenth, and there's going to be so many. They're out LA alone, and they're going to continue going. People are fed up right now. We're grieving. Like I said before, I've been seeing the 7 stages of grief throughout every single protest. Each one has its own, each one has its own embodiment of a different stage, depending on what the people in that area need at that time, I believe. And I just feel like it's a mixture of grief, frustration, anger, and wanting better, and knowing that we can be better, that we should be better.
I agree. So I was gonna ask you, I'm curious, let me find this Fred Hampton clip real quick, because right now it is behind a screen here. But I was going to play this clip for you, and I want to hear your thoughts. I'm curious of your thoughts on this clip.
I'm excited to watch.
1 second.
No worries. Take your time.
Alrighty, let's watch this. Or you can hear it.
They have Black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best, we think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with Black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions where all of us people are getting together and have an international proletarian revolution.
Right on.
And that's saying all power to the people. That's saying that no matter what color you are, there's only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back because this is lower, this is upper, this is the oppressed.
And then here's the second part here.
Okay, is there any way to increase the volume too before you go forward?
Oh, yes. Hold on one second.
Thank you.
So let me replay it then for you because it's important.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. Now you can still hear me, correct?
Yes.
They have black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best, we think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions where all of us people are getting together and have an international proletarian revolution.
Right on.
And that's saying all power to the people. That's saying that no matter what color you are, there's only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back because this is lower, this is upper, this is the oppressed.
And here's the second part.
I love this already. Like.
This is the oppressor, this is the exploited, this is the exploiter. And these people in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fight amongst each other. And you've heard the testimony of pigs here. You got pigs of all colors, you know that. You got pigs that are white, you got pigs that are black, you even got pigs that are black and white. Propagating the same type of madness that this buffoon Hanrahan would be propagating if he were here himself. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy. Why? Because if ever you would disregard him and overlook him just for a minute and throw away that question of racism and start into dealing with a little logic, then they could be.
So, your thoughts on that clip?
I agree 1000%. Thank you so much for playing that clip. It's actually very reassuring. I could not agree more. Like, I believe, honestly, a lot of, even going back to your previous question with why are these, senseless, violent acts happening now, these suicides, and everything like that. Like, this is exactly why. Like, he says it perfectly, that the more that we come together and the more, numerically speaking, in solidarity, it threatens everything that establishment offers people. It makes us ask critical questions. It makes the divides amongst us as a society start to disappear. And once we really see that there is nothing separating you, me, anybody else, even people who look at me and just off of that would determine that they don't like me and that they hate me, there's nothing that is separating us besides the elitist class fueling racism and making people, they want us to be at each other's necks. They want me to say that I don't like, like white supremacists, and they want to separate us so bad, because the more that they do that, the less that we come together and start to critically think and point the finger at the ones who are really at the root of the issues that all of us are facing. We're facing the same issues, all of us, no matter what we look like. We are all frustrated. We all want better for ourselves. We all want better for our families, our loved ones. That's at the root of all of this. We all have 5 pillars of mortality. Morally speaking, we have 5 pillars. And whether, you're a liberal, conservative, doesn't matter, same 5 pillars, just like the prioritization of the pillars might vary. But at the end of the day, we are moral beings. Humans are decent people. And that's why a lot of times it's very hard for people to see their own faults, because they're very well intentioned, just poorly executed. But with proper education, like I go back before, like all of this can be undone. People can become morally aligned with who they're truly meant to be, which is empathetic human beings, if we educate them more and we pour more resources into the communities that need them and take them away from I don't even know what to call them at this point, but this pays for hire, like police force, which is just protecting the systems that were put in place to divide us in the first place. Like capitalism, like I said, capitalism protects racism, it fuels racism. Racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything. The true language of America is not English, it is money. Everything operates on a monetary scale, and it is, yes, that is the root of all of our problems. The elitist class will do anything, and I mean absolutely anything. We can see it, down to making us hate each other, to protect the power that they have in society. They do not want to give that up. They don't see any reason for them to do it, even though all of us do. Like, we're all feeling the pain of what they cause us, what they are doing to us, how they're depriving us of, human dignity, human rights, the right to live well, the right not to have to worry about ourselves and our loved ones, and how we're going to get the resources that we need to become successful, and not even just successful, for a lot of people to just survive.
Just to survive.
Yeah, just to survive. Over 55% of the global population has less than $10,000 right now. I'm sure they can't. That is lunch for members of the elitist class. It's unreasonable. It's inhumane. It's wrong. It's downright wrong.
It is wrong, and I completely agree that they're trying to keep us divided, squabbling between each other, while they're out just making money, more money, accumulating wealth, delving into their greed, and you previously you alluded to an establishment. So what do you think is composed of that establishment? Like, you think like politicians? Is it politicians on both sides? Is it presidents? Is it CEOs? What do you think?
All of it. It's like I mentioned before, it's bureaucratic. It's absolutely everything. Every institution that we rely on has been turned against us, the people. The institutions that we trust to protect us are actually protecting capitalism, not us. Even at the protest that I was at yesterday, or I'm sorry, not yesterday, but the other day in Victorville, there were police officers around a building, and we had one of them come over and speak to us, and we asked him why they were there in the first place, and he said that they were there to protect the buildings.
Yeah.
The buildings. I was like, your job as an authoritative figure, as somebody who represents this government, is to protect the people. Forget the buildings. Just in that itself, it lets you know that they are there to protect capitalism. They were never there to protect us. They were not created. They were created for us as slave patrols, but they were not created to protect us. They've never been there to protect and serve all people. They were there to protect and serve some people, the ones that they deem worthy of protecting and serving, the ones who are hoarding all of the resources, the ones who are hoarding all of the wealth. That is what it all comes down to. And there are so many people fueling into this. It's systemic, as you know. There's so many people fueling into this. Anybody in a position of power, whether you work for the media, or whether you're involved in politics, or whether you're in the banking system, like the World Bank is a huge problem, but that's a whole other show. But yes, like all of it just pours into it, because they keep selling us this notion of the American dream that, if you work hard enough, if you become corrupted, in the name of capitalism, you can finally reach that elitist class and get access to the power that they have been depriving you of all your life. That is a lie. That is a lie. The elitist class is a monarchy, for lack of better terms. They pass power down based on based on relation. It has nothing to do with capability, with drive, with ambition, none of that. No, no. Because even if you make it, like I mentioned before, to the upper class, that is still not comparable to the elitist class. The divide is beyond imaginable. You're not even going to get into the same buildings as the people from the elitist class, even if you are in the high end of the upper class. You're either in or you're out. And all of us, 99% of the world, we're out.
Very well said. Very well said. Like you left me speechless there for a second. Yeah. See, like I said, everybody, she speaks fire. This is why Maya's on the show. She was speaking so much fire. Now I'm curious. We understand you hold these amazing views, and most of our viewers are boom right there with you. So I'm curious about your honest thoughts about previous President Obama. Was America better when he was president, or what do you think? I'm just curious.
I think that Obama did a lot of despicable acts, and that cannot be denied or excused. A lot of people have suffered in the hundreds of thousands because of Obama's actions, whether that be right here in the United States or, in another country. And a lot of times it is overseas. And in my opinion, it's unexcusable, it's inhumane, and I don't like it at all. I believe, though, as a Black woman, that a lot of people are ignorant to the fact of all of Obama's administration's actions, and a lot of them just know him as the Black president, like the first Black president. And for a lot of young Black kids, representation is very, very important. A lot of times you have to see something to believe that it can be possible. So a lot of kids never thought that they could become powerful. They never considered getting involved in politics. They never even considered the possibility that they could become a president at all, and never would have in a million years. They thought the only way to achieve success was through the ways that they see on TV, which is entertainment or sports. They thought those were the only two routes for them. That is not true. It's not true, but we never see successful Black people in other roles, like as the president, or as a Fortune 500 CEO or COO, or whatever the case may be. We just don't see it. So a lot of people don't even believe that they have it in them, that this society will even allow them to fill those roles. So I think that he played a very important role when it comes down to representation, because he empowered so many people, but we cannot ignore the fact that he hurt so many others. And I believe like he made a sacrifice. He knew what him just being in that position would do for so many kids. I believe he was playing his role in essence. I think that he was, I think he was, I'm very torn on that. I don't excuse any of his actions, but I see the results of what his representation in office had on young Black people. And I cannot act like I don't. I hear people saying that they want to be president one day, and it warms my heart, because I didn't grow up hearing the Black kids around me saying that they think that they can be president. And now I do. And I can't ignore that. It's empowering. People have to see that.
This perspective is exactly what so personally, I think he kept people asleep, especially a lot of the latte, like neoliberal type people. Flint, Michigan was during his presidency. He took a sip of water and then left. They still have lead in their water. People are still dying. Black Lives Matter movement started under his presidency. He used the Espionage Act to prosecute more whistleblowers. He got the Nobel Peace Prize, yet he dropped 171 bombs in 2016, according to new figures that the U.S. dropped nearly 3 bombs every hour, 24 hours a day during that 2016 year. And so, I'm so happy that you understand it. But, the people that don't understand that, I don't fault them for that, because everyone is most of our Black American brothers and sisters, they're working class, and they're consumed. So it's to find the correct information is difficult, and especially in these last few years, it's been the mainstream media news has been just you can't follow it.
That's intentional.
Yeah, and it's intentionally a thing. So the cancel culture sucks. So what my point of doing this is that I wanted to hear your perspective, your point of view, and you know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
And I wish, and you know, we need to get you speaking at these events, because a lot of people don't know that, you know, and they still love him. I mean, and I completely understand that perspective. I completely understand that, you know, and there's something I can't ever feel. That's something I've never felt, and especially our white brothers and sisters, they haven't felt that either, you know.
Yeah, honestly, but I think it's what's even more important than representation is critical thinking, because you can honestly empower yourself through means of critical thinking. So although it is really important that a lot of people were able to become empowered by him who would never have the opportunity or the resources to fulfill that, like that, those levels of empowerment otherwise. I'm not a personal fan of blind loyalty. I think that we should be holding people accountable no matter who they are. Yeah, morals over manners is my motto. I believe in holding people accountable, even Barack Obama, even though he has my respect. And I do admire a lot that he did for Black people, but again, I'm speaking from the experience of a Black woman here, and a lot of these people that I'm referencing are my close friends, my family, you know, or my young cousins, and it means a lot to me. It touches my heart. It's a very sensitive subject for me, so I can't overlook that. I can't, but I can understand the people who do.
Yeah, and there's, you know, so you spoke on it, that perspective that a lot of people don't see, which is, yes, like a member of my oppressed society and culture made it to where racists said someone couldn't ever make it, you know?
Yeah.
So I totally see that, and I'm totally, that's such a great perspective. So on to the next one. So we spoke about Obama. Now, who do you think is best poised to bring reforms that we were speaking about? More power to the people, more resources to the people in the office of the presidency. If it could be anybody living.
Oh, anybody?
Yes.
I'd like to see Michelle Obama give it a go, honestly. I really would. I personally, I want to see a Black woman in office, or I would like to see a Black trans woman in office. I'd like to see a member of the most marginalized group in society have the most powerful position in society, and then see how the world will change from that point on forward. That's what I want.
How about with the choices that we have now?
Well, with the choices that we have now, I think that, I believe Donald Trump's an unacceptable choice, period. So I don't think that as a country we should move forward with him as our leader. I don't think that he should. Yeah, I don't want to see another 4 years of Donald Trump. Look at what's happening right now within the whole nation. He has sparked protests throughout the entire world. So I think that speaks volumes. I don't think that he's the right person to lead us through these movements. I think the movements are in part to the fact that he's our president. He does not care about Black people. He does not care about anybody but other. He doesn't care about women. He only cares about white men, the group that he is a part of. Anything outside of that realm, Donald Trump he's not for you. He is for white men in America. And particularly, like, he represents that white elitist class. He is for his peers, and he is for the white men who want to become his peers. I don't think that that's acceptable. At least with Biden, we see him making efforts, even if not the greatest, and I'm not going to say that he makes the greatest efforts, but regardless, that's more than Trump, which in my opinion is sad that we just have to say, well, who's trying? You know, like, we deserve better from a president than to have to narrow it down to who's trying. You know, come on now. But anyways, you know, I say that to say that he does make an effort to reach out to marginalized communities, and he does have different people in positions of authority within his own campaign who give him advice and perspectives from different marginalized community members. And he really does listen to a lot of the feedback that comes from his respected peers. I know because my council member works closely with Joe Biden, and he's a Black man, and Biden definitely listens to him. He takes into deep consideration all of the proposals that my mentor brings forward, which is nice to hear. But yeah, in my own personal opinion, I, of course, speaking from the experience and perspective of a Black woman here, I would still like to see somebody, some essence of diversity going into the Oval Office. I know we're not going to get that with Trump at all, and I think that our best chance of that is with Biden.
See, now that's a great argument. Personally, I think that Joe Biden, he's kind of part of the establishment. So even if like he kind of has people and brings more diversity to the office of presidency, I feel like people are going to go back to sleep, and then but it's such a tough choice, and they gave us this choice again on purpose, the lesser of two evils again.
Yes, and we shouldn't have to feel like that when it comes to picking who our national leader is about to be. We should not have to feel like we're choosing the lesser of two evils. That's so not representative of who we are as a society, like who we are as a nation. Like our morals in this country, for the vast majority of this country, do not align with us having to pick a leader who is the lesser of two evils. That is capitalism at play. They don't listen to the people. They do not represent the people. They at all. And I mean vocally or physically speaking. They're like, no, they're not for us. Like it's disheartening to think that that all of us have to choose candidates that we really don't want to choose, because we're just trying to get through the next 4 years and hoping for better from the next election.
Right. Do you think a third-party candidate is possible? I mean, we got to start considering third-party, because me personally, I'm like right at Dem exiting. Like I'm already like halfway, 75% out the door of exiting the Democratic Party. I've been Democrat. I went for Obama back in the day. In 2016, I was for Bernie. In 2020, I was for Bernie. And I think they stole the election from him. It should be Bernie Sanders, not Joe Biden.
Hey, our opinions are one. Like, I believe the same thing. Unfortunately, when it comes to choosing a third-party candidate, the system is set up against anybody who wants to be in that position. Just because, we have 6 media companies that own all the media that we see, the news, etc., and all of these are owned by all 5 old white men and 1 old Asian man. And even then, systemically speaking, we all know that the Asian demographic is now, they make more than white men at this point. So it's still these old, rich, powerful men who are controlling all the media that we see. And they're going to back a candidate, of course, and give media attention to a candidate who aligns with their own values and their own agenda. They're not going to, they're going to do everything in their power, which we see a lot of time from the coded language and the propaganda we get in the news and through media, that they have an agenda of their own. And it's not to give everybody a fair chance.
So what are your thoughts on the Democratic Party? Because I'm curious, like, do you think it's corporatist, or do you think we can reform it? What do you think?
I think if we do try to take the route of reforming the Democratic Party, that's going to be a very long journey for us. I think that we need new framework in this country. We would not be the first country to adopt new framework. We're actually one of the only countries who has not adopted new framework, especially after the people keep rising up in disagreement with the way that our country is run and the way that the power is actually not in the hands of the people. People are frustrated. We want to change. I think a lot of leaders need to get back to the drawing board and see how we can take this country forward in a new direction. And I think we need to decorrupt politics. And for us to decorrupt politics, we've got to start taking some people's power away and redistributing that to people who are better aligned with the wants and the needs of the communities that are actually represented here in this nation.
Yeah, so like focus more on local elections then?
Yes, exactly. Or even, I think people should be doing that anyway, because a lot of times our local elected officials have more power and more say-so in what goes on in our actual community than anybody on the federal level. So people definitely need to be tapping into their local politics as is, because if we start getting more involved locally, then things will start to change on a federal basis. You see what I'm saying? Like they're the ones who have the power to make things change federally. They can hit up their counterparts. Even in what I've been doing recently is trying to reach out to state senators, state legislators, and get them to arouse support for adding a 28th Amendment to our Constitution. Because we don't have anything in our Constitution that talks about human rights or human dignity. And I believe that we should. You can't even recognize civil rights, let alone protect them, if you do not recognize human rights and human dignity first. We need to take a step back before we can take a step forward. And I think that by adding them to our Constitution, a lot of the problems that we see here and that we see these protests happening over will not, they're violations of human rights. They're violations of human dignity. And with a clause in our Constitution as a framework to protect that, our citizens will be a lot safer. And even people who are not, that's again, my personal opinion, but protecting human rights protects everybody, regardless of where you're from, regardless, and that can be, geographically speaking, socioeconomically speaking, regardless of what you look like, and anything like those things no longer matter if you move forward protecting human dignity and human rights.
Yes. So like on this show, we've been showing how, trying to reform the Democratic Party has really failed. Every supposed progressive has been silent on endorsing other progressives, and recently the one superstar progressive, AOC, who I used to support, has now endorsed Jerry Nadler. I don't know if you know who Jerry Nadler is. He wrote the new version of the Patriot Act, and then the Patriot Act is like an infringement on our rights or our privacy. Yeah. And Nancy Pelosi has voted to increase the military budget every time during Trump's presidency. I already said it. They stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders. So, what do you think is the most? I think the most direct action we can do. I know the Movement for a People's Party, along with Our Revolution LA, is planning a protest at every congressperson's house. And if we look back in history, the civil rights movement, it was just protest after protest after protest, and then finally they got what they needed to get done. What do you think? Do you think that's the best route, or do you think there's another route?
I think we need to take action on all fronts. So I think protests are very important. As you know, I've been personally going, but also I think it's vital that we get involved in government on a personal level. We have more power than we give ourselves credit for. Not only do we have the power to reach out to our state representatives, but we have the power to become state representatives. Yeah. So instead of that's how we take people's power away, by giving power to the people who it deserves to go to. We need to start diversifying these local government ourselves by voting people out and voting the right people in. We need to start running. It's like we need to not just show up to the polls, but we need to become the names on the ballots at the polls. People have to get involved. I know politics can be boring. I know it's not always fun, but it's absolutely necessary to the greater good of all people. So we've got to do it. We've got to do it, honestly.
I agree. And over like half of the population doesn't vote. And they don't vote because they feel like their vote doesn't count. Exactly. Did you vote this last primary?
I typically try to make it out to all local elections and national elections. I know that they do estimates based on voter turnout. So like when people say that their votes don't count, like a lot of times they're speaking on a literal level because they're not necessarily counting all of the votes, which is something that deters a lot of people from showing up to the polls. And I'm completely transparent, me included sometimes. So I make it out to all local elections because there's not the same, we don't see that type of era within local elections because there's not as large of a voter turnout to where, it would go unnoticed that they're doing voter estimates instead of actually counting the votes. But people aren't showing up to vote because they don't think that their vote matters. One, they don't think it will be counted. They don't think that anybody on the ballot represents them or their ideals. And they don't trust politicians. simply. And I just know that the more people that we put in, because we are qualified, we are extremely educated, and a lot of us cannot be intimidated. So the more people who are actually qualified to do just acts in politics need to be on the ballots. And I guarantee you people will come out to vote. If your best friend tells you that they're about to run and you know that they will make an excellent candidate, then you're going to go out and vote, and then everybody you know you're going to tell them to go out and vote too. That's how we can make a real change. That's how we can get people to the polls, is to start putting the people that we know and trust on the ballots.
So later on today, actually soon, I'm interviewing Raji Rab, a congressional candidate who monitored the counting of the ballots and believes to have caught the LARRCC, which is the Los Angeles Registrar Recorder, committing election fraud. I'm curious, did you experience like long lines or any provisional ballots, broken ballot marking devices? Do you remember where you voted? If you did vote, I'm not sure if you said you did vote or not.
Sure, yeah. Honestly, it depends on the local election. They actually happen at different times. But if you talk to anybody who volunteers at the voting polls, at the voting booths, and I recommend doing this like during a national election, then they will tell you straight up that they will be looking at a box full of tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of ballots, and be hearing the election results being called out on the radio. So if that doesn't raise questions in itself, then I do not know what will. So start, poking around the people who, work in the actual voting polls, whether it's on a volunteer basis or whether they're getting paid by the city to be there, and ask them the questions that they don't want to have to answer. A lot of them don't even know how to answer the questions. They just see things happening and then try to make it mental excuses up for the actions. But no, let's go back to this critical thinking point that we keep coming across. Like, let's start critically thinking about all of these things and then moving forward. We need to take a step back and start looking over all of these mechanisms, all the mechanisms of this system, which is oppressing us all. And we need to start picking at it bit by bit, and then putting people who deserve to be in positions of power to make it better.
Would you call the long lines like voter suppression? Would you call that like 3-hour plus lines, especially at universities? Would you call that voters?
Yes, because I actually did try to vote at my university. I had to leave and go to a different location because the line was so long, because they know how people, like, especially in areas, and this is why they do, they get the numeric values based off of voter turnout, demographically speaking, because they feel like they know how people are going to vote, especially at universities, which are very vocal about being liberal, like
Yes.
Cal Civil, for example. They feel like they know how all the students are going to vote, and shoot, maybe they do, but they don't actually, like they have a good guess, but at the end of the day, you don't know how anybody is going to vote, which is why it's vital to take every vote and to look at it and to categorize it appropriately. You cannot. I don't think it is fair. I don't think it's fair to go off of estimated voter turnout.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, like what I think I focus on a lot in my two biggest fights is direct action to congressional Congress and protests in everybody's house, direct action protests, because that's how the civil rights movement was really done. And then another thing is that our democracy is at a stake here with how they do the votes. I went to the voting center. I went to where they counted the ballots. I saw thousands of provisional ballots. I was there the night of, and they were handing out provisional ballots like candy. They were provisional ballots require extra scrutiny, and there were people that weren't in the roster, and they were registered for years, and then they were off the roster. So to me, it sounds like there's a lot of suspicious activities happening, and so I encourage you to watch my next interview with Raji, because he's taking it to the courts. So.
This is not what the people wanted. This is not the democracy that we are promised. It's not this is just not representative of the democracy that a lot of us want to stand for really badly, but are having to question and to distrust so critically that we can't even do so in good faith.
Exactly. So just want to ask a last question is, what would you prefer strangers to refer you as? Like as in like African American, as in Black American, brother, sister? I'm just curious because, everyone has different opinions. So I just want to see your opinion.
Actually, I really love that question. I personally know that the terms African American, Black, any of things like that, like all of those are just other tools used to divide us. I'm a human being just like you, and that's the only thing that I think we should just be referring to people, as person. Like it. The more that we rely on these like linguistic cues that tell us that we're different from each other, the more separated that we feel. I feel like we should do away with all of these labels because that's what they are at the end of the day. Like, what does it's a whole term to describe my complexion. My complexion, that does not matter. My complexion has nothing to do with who I am, how healthy I am, how intelligent I am. It has my personality, absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. If anything, I think that we need to do away with all of those dividing labels because again, like it just like, even when it comes down to like, you see the different layers of it, like Black versus white and all that stuff. They do like the good versus evil, all of these things that come into like, it's all conditioning. We need to just do away with all of these degrading labels. I'm an American and I'm a human.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to start. What about like my human brother and sister? Like, should we start that movement? Like my human brother, my human sister?
Let's do it. Honestly, because we need to stop separating ourselves through the language that we use, because every time that we point out that there's a difference between us, we're reminded that there's a difference between us.
Right.
If we really want to come together in solidarity, then we should do it as the human race, not as any individual race.
Love it. Thank you so much, Maya, for this amazing interview. You're a pleasure to speak and discuss with. And I wish you good luck on your future endeavors. I feel like you got a bright future ahead of you. Is there anything going on that you'd like to inform our viewers about?
I would just say, again, thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure to speak to you as well. Honestly, you ask amazing questions. I do have, if people are fed up with media that has coded language and propaganda, then feel free to tune into my site and my media outlet. Like I do show reviews and stories, so feel free to tune in.
And that one's called the Midas Touch?
The Midas Touch.
The Maya's Touch. Oh, all right. She's got a news blog. All right. Let's go. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. A new perspective, a new view from a young mind. The tide is turning. More and more people are waking up. We're going to continue bringing you on-the-ground footage, amazing interviews, commentary, creative ideas, the best journalism that we can do, and so much more. You can support us by signing up on ROKFIN, which is a crypto-based platform, or Patreon. Super chats help too. I actually missed a super chat. Let me see this one. Bethlehem, he says, Nina Turner, hello somebody. If you want to see women of color in that position, Michelle Obama, hell no. By the way, I'm a black woman. You lost me there. Well, what your thoughts on that real quick?
We can disagree, honestly. I would like to hear more about why they say that. I'd love to have that conversation. So
yeah, they were preferring Nina Turner over Michelle Obama. But thank you so much, everybody. My name is Jonathan. This is a collaboration between the Convo Couch and True Rebel Network. New channel I started, so make sure you go there. Link is in the description at the bottom. And thank you so much for joining us. And I'll be around in about 20-30 minutes with Raji Rob discussing his ongoing case in the Superior Courts of California. So don't miss that. Thanks again. Convo out. Maya,